good one.
It was great to be able to get a couple of moments with Richie McCaw this week. His return from a broken thumb against the Brumbies was nothing short of incredible. A game high, 20 tackles, couple of turnovers as well. When I spoke to Richie yesterday, I began by asking him whether he'd expected to find form as quickly and effectively as he did.
Well, you do expect that. I sort of had to, because the guys that were playing pretty well the last few weeks. So to roll straight back in and get a starting spot, I sort of pressure was on to make sure I did perform. I think the key to doing that is you get your preparation right, and you don't go and try and be a hero and do everything, you know, magically. You just go out and try and do your job well, and I think that's what all I did, and that sort of helped have a reasonable performance. So, but you know, just got to be better next week.
Now, the Crusaders were criticised for their slow start, but of course now you're on the charge. What's the big difference, do you think? What's been the thing that's really clicked for the team?
Well, you talk about slow starts. We were talking before the season started that was something we definitely didn't want to do this year, and you know, 2 weeks into it, we were in the same spot. So you don't know what we did right or wrong. But I think a lot of it just comes down to confidence. You know, you get a couple of good games under your belt, and you actually start to believe in. Really believe in how you're playing and the things that you were trying to do first up that perhaps the timing wasn't quite right. You know, you work on that and it comes right. And I think, you know, nothing magical, but just guys working together for the structures you want to play. But you see in the competition that you let your guard down, you know, 5%, you'll get tipped up real quick. And I think that's what makes it exciting, but makes it hard work.
Now, the Crusaders have had some big battles with the Reds over the years, particularly at Suncorp Stadium, and when you think back to that 2011 Super Rugby final, the Reds have been largely written off over here. What do you make of the current Reds side?
The last 2 weeks, the Reds will be disappointed with how they've played. You know, they've had to travel to New Zealand twice, and as I said before, you don't get it quite right, you come second. But I know that, you know, you look at the players in the Reds team, there are some experienced players, especially when you talk about, you know, guys like Hallwall and Genia and Cooper, those sort of guys, they get back home at Suncorp, never had an easy game there, and they'll be hurting. They want to come out and rectify things. So, you know, it's always been a enjoyable game over there, usually pretty open, so, you know, it might be the same on Sunday.
Now, Richie, there's an article being picked up over here written by Chris Ratui in the New Zealand Herald suggesting that there's no way the Aussies can win back the Bledisloe this year because Australian sides in Super Rugby are again being shown to be too soft. Are Australian sides too soft?
Oh, it's pretty good of that guy to load the gun for the Wallaby guys, I suppose. Oh, look, you know, to be honest, although we have one eye on, you know, hopefully, you know, getting to play in those games, the test matches, you know, it's hard to get too carried away with what's happening now and draw conclusions on what's happening with super teams, because, you know, history's shown that it doesn't necessarily mean that, that things are going to happen at Test rugby. But just from that point of view, the Bledisloe Cup, so, you know, even though we've had it for a while, you know, we want to keep it as much as probably the Wallabies want to get hold of it, and that means it's always a pretty tight contest. So, you know, I know they'd like to get it back, but I'd love to keep our hands on it. But, you know, it's still a wee way away yet. But, yeah, hopefully that's what happens at the end of the year.
Good to catch up with Richie. Aussie side's too soft. That's an interesting yarn. Another interesting piece from Georgie's Fairfax colleague in New Zealand, Mark Reason, suggesting that Steve Hansen should drop Richie McCaw as All Black captain and drop him from the spring tour to Europe, George, saying it's the only way that they're going to get him through to the World Cup next year, playing the sort of rugby he played last weekend in New Zealand.
I don't necessarily agree with dropping him as the All Black captain. They use the word mana like it's a huge amount of respect, and he has it in spades. But I think he's enjoying his rugby. His comments post that Brumbies game where he just loved the game and he played at his usual standard after a long break. But he's enjoying Super Rugby, and he loves captaining that All Black team. And I think if you can maintain that balance, then he's fine for a Rugby World Cup. And he just knows how to prepare for a game. You just saw it last weekend. It was a phenomenal performance. Yeah, incredible comeback from Richie McCaw. Friday night prime time from Amy Park in Melbourne. It'll be the Rebels and the Hurricanes on Fox Sports 2. Let's